What's up, tribe? How you guys doing? Go ahead and hit that subscribe button, and I hope you like this video. This is going to be your review for Black Cake Season 1, Episode 6. So, we pick up where we left off with Byron beating the you-know-what out of Benny's man. Okay? Ex-boyfriend, boyfriend, whatever, right? The police show up. Benny gets arrested. Byron gets arrested. Benny is really upset by the whole situation, and sort of gets dragged off and everything. And it's a whole situation, and it's a whole mess. Now, we have a flashback to we see um Eleanor telling her story, talking about Benny, and speaking on Benny. Like, look, I know you thought you were my oldest, but you weren't my firstborn, but you definitely were a special, you were a special person. We always knew, that you would, that you would do great things, and you were so much like your father, all of these things. So we see her sort of and we could tell this is after the cancer has started to set in. We see her with a scarf on her head. Her hair is not, you could tell, they're trying to give the illusion that her hair is sort of falling out or whatever. And you can see her face is starting to be a little gaunt or whatever. So you could tell this is later in her in her disease or what have you. We see Benny talking to the police officer, down to the detective. Shout out Mario Van Peebles. Mwah, still beautiful. He is still a gorgeous man. And he's like, well, when, how long ago was the abuse? And she said, well, I was, we were together for 6 years, and she told him about the abuse over the years. And he was like, well, look, I'm going to be honest with you. It's going to be really hard. She said, well, my brother just found out about the abuse, and so he was upset. He saw him there, and he thought I was in danger, and he was trying to defend me, and um he said, well, you can take out a restraining order, but honestly, to be perfectly honest, it's going to kind of really be an uphill battle, just because it was so much time, and you were in the relationship for so long. But he said you could, file a police report, you could file for a temporary restraining order, then you can go to court for a more permanent one. So Benny agrees to do that. And then we see Byron in his cell. We see him being booked and going through all of that, and then we see him being in his cell, and we have a couple of flashbacks. So we see a flashback where Benny, it looks like Benny always sort of, I keep saying Benny, Byron. It looks like Byron sort of always had like a little bit of a hot temper, because we see his dad talking to him and saying, look, you can't, like, you can't be out here fighting. Like, you can't afford to be out here fighting, because the rules just ain't the same for you. And Benny was like, but why not? Like, why can't I? And he said, you put me in a school with people that don't look like me, and I'm supposed to just let them talk to me crazy and do whatever they want to do, and I'm not supposed to defend myself. He was like, how is that fair? Like, why are you putting me in a position where I can't defend myself against people who are trying to, do me wrong? And he got the cussing and stuff, and Gibbs was like, hold up, you gonna watch your mouth up in this house. And Benny was like, and Eleanor was like, say what you need to say. And, he did. He explained how helpless he felt. He said, I always have to be better. I can't drive 1 mile over the speed limit because I have to worry about getting pulled over by the police. I can't do this and I can't do that. And it's so much pressure, it's so much on me. And she said, you know what? That's a lot of pressure. That's a lot of pressure that you must have had to carry. And she said, so listen, you're right. When you out there in the world, that's just the world we live in. You just have to be better. You can't respond. You have to always drive in the middle of the road, the speed limit. Like, you can't do it. She said, but when you come here, you can let it out here. If you need to cry, cry. If you need to scream, scream. And honestly, that's the best we can give you, Then we also saw Eleanor struggling with how she dealt with Bunny. She said, Benny, when you came to us and told us that you were, bisexual or gay, whatever she identified as, we hesitated, and that was hurtful to you. She said, and I need you to understand that in that moment, I felt like I failed you, just like I had failed Bunny. And, when we were on the island, I did everything I knew to do to protect Bunny, because we knew that even the rumor that you were gay could be a dangerous thing. And so so she said, so that we see a scene where Bunny and Eleanor are at a party, and Eleanor had invited Gibbs and the guy that liked Bunny, and Bunny was like, why are you doing this? Like, I done already told you I don't like boys. Like, I get it. You want to be with Gibbs, you don't want to be with me, but I don't want to be with boys. And she was like, look, girl, you gonna have to pretend. You gonna have to fake it till you make it, because you got to protect yourself. Like, you can't put yourself in this situation. And she said, look, just do what I do. So you see her and Gibbs dancing, and she puts Gibbs's arms around her, so Bunny puts the boy's arms around her, and everything that Eleanor Covey did, we saw Bunny do. And eventually we saw, after Covey left, we saw that Bunny was still with that boy, and actually ended up giving him, I'm assuming it was her virginity or what have you. And she said, I failed you like I failed Bunny, because all you wanted was to be accepted for who you are, and you just wanted my support, and I didn't do that. And that's something that I always regretted. And then we saw her with the lawyer, and the lawyer was friends with Gibbs, just like she was friends with them, and they both had lost their spouses, and they found each other. So you see that there's definitely was intimacy with them, as far as, that they were more than friends. And, he told her, he said, listen, Gibbs loved you, and he said, back before my wife died, me and Gibbs would sit around, we would smoke our cigars, and we would brag on our wives, and we would talk about how great and how perfect they were, and, all of those things. And so that was a good moment for us to see and understand all of that. So we get back to the house, and we see Benny is at the house. And Steve then came by the house, child. Because he was calling, and she finally blocked his number from her phone. So then he done come by the house talking about some, like a restraining order, Benny, for real, a restraining order. Because she went out to talk to him, because he is standing out front of the house screaming her name. And she was like, look, it's over. Like, just leave me alone. He was like, I dropped the charges against your brother. Like for real? Like, you gonna put out a restraining order against me? And basically, I did you a favor, is what he was saying. And he was like, well, I made a promise to the buyer about that piece for $20,000. So what you gonna do about it? That piece that you destroyed. And she was like, oh, well, like, that sounds like a you problem. It's not. And she hesitated for a long time, but she finally said, that's a you problem. That don't have nothing to do with me. Like, I didn't agree to buy, that artwork, sell the artwork or whatever, even though she was wrong for destroying it, but okay. So he does, when he finally, I guess, made up in his mind that she wasn't going to come around. So, of course, then he started doing what abusers do. He started insulting her. You're nothing without me. You're a parasite. You used me. What are you going to do without me? When was the last time you made an art piece? When was the last time you did anything constructive? You need me. And she was like, yeah, no, I don't. And I was like, okay, Benny, getting your strength. Okay, girl, I see you. So Byron gets out of jail because, again, like Steve said, he did drop the charges. So Byron ends up getting out of jail. And the attorney, he came down there, what's his name? The attorney. He came down there, he said, well, I'm going to make sure that the charges get dropped, properly, because, of course, they can't afford for Byron to mess around and have, assault charges on his record. That'll be something that hits the news or whatever. So, they leave out, and Byron is like, I'm supposed to be on a diversity panel later on today, and my face looked like I got jumped. Like, I can't go up there with them people with my face looking crazy. And Benny was like, Shy, you know how many times I had to cover up a bruise? Come on, let me help you out. So she gets the makeup to cover him, to help cover his face or whatever. And you definitely see them building up their friendship again, getting back to being brother and sister, whatever. And so we see Benny go sit on this diversity panel, and something in Benny has switched. You know what I mean? Like, I think he's no longer interested in go along with the get along. Like, I think he's like, look, these good people, I'm gonna always just be their flunky. Like, that's what I'm gonna always be to them. So he's on the panel, and he's there, and he's going through the motions or whatever. And somebody asked him the question, basically, how does it feel? Basically, how does it feel to be the only black person in this space? Like, and he gives a speech, child. He says, listen, for a long time I was okay with it because I understood what it was, right? He said, but I'm at a point now where, I realize that no matter what I do, as I always dreamt of being in these spaces. I always dreamt that, I would be the black person that would break the barrier and open up doors for people behind me. He said, but the older I get, the more I realize that I see myself in these spaces, but they don't see me in these spaces. And that they're perfectly okay for me to be where I am, but they don't imagine and they don't see me elevating past where they have allowed me to be. And that makes me angry. And that makes me realize that, at this point, I have to figure it out because I am no longer okay and I'm no longer content with being in the spaces that they've allowed me to be in. And it was funny because his boss, who got the job over him, is sitting next to him and trying to get him to stop talking. The moderator tried to cut him off, baby. The moderator tried to cut him off, and he was like, I ain't done. I'm still talking. Then his boss tried to get him to stop. He said, I'm going to finish what I'm saying. And when he got done, baby, all the colored people in the audience gave him a standing ovation because they realized, like, what he said was real and it was valid. Like, listen, yeah, I have broken barriers, but they have decided that I'm not going beyond where I am. They're not going to allow me. And that makes me angry. And again, that is what Lynette wanted from him. I'm not saying she addressed it in the most sensitive way, but that is what she wanted from him, right? So while this is going on, Benny is at the house and she is going through an envelope full of receipts. And what we found out later on is that all of these receipts are from restaurants that are across the street from her apartment. And later on we see her talking to Byron about it, and she said, listen, all these years, my own father literally once a month came to my apartment, ate across the street, doing whatever it was he was doing, but too afraid to come and knock on my door and have the conversation with me that we needed to have. So Benny is back. We'll get back to that. But Benny is at the house, and Byron pulls up after the seminar. Child, he's going viral down to Instagram. And Benny is happy because she done finally stood up to Steve and told him to go to hell. And somebody pulls up in a Range Rover, right? And it looks very suspicious. And so Byron is like, he's texting Benny like, yo, did you call Steve? Like, is this Steve right here? But it ends up being Maggie. It ends up being they half sister child. She done showed up, and of course it is an awkward family reunion. They are all standing around, don't know what to say to each other. And Byron is excited to see her, but Benny is standing there like, I don't know how I feel about this. Because of course, remember, Benny still feels some kind of way that she feels like she was always being compared to this woman. So Benny still feels some kind of way. So they end up calling the lawyer. They end up having dinner because Benny was cooking. And actually, Benny and her half-sister end up having a really good conversation about food because, of course, both of them are into food and cooking and stuff like that. So it was a good conversation. So the lawyer shows up, and they get ready to listen to the tape. And he lets Maggie, it's Maggie, I feel like it's Marjorie or Maggie. Anyway, he lets Maggie know that Eleanor left a separate tape for her to explain, to maybe answer most of her questions, because she asked about who her father was. And so, again, you could tell by the looks and everything in the room that people knew. She said, well, listen, with all due respect, can y'all just go ahead and tell me? Because clearly everybody in this room know about my daddy but me. So, at this point, can you just lay it on me? Can you just give it to me? So they end up basically telling her that she was a product of a sexual assault, which of course she was like, okay, see, now this is just too much. Like, first I found out I'm adopted, then I found out that I'm half Caribbean slash black, which I never knew. I've been living my life as a whole white woman all these years, and now you telling me that not only did all of that happen, but um that my daddy assaulted my mama, and that's how I even got here to begin with. Yeah, that's a bit much. That's a bit too much, and I don't even know how to handle it. Okay, so she leaves, and she said, "Listen, I don't want no parts of this. Like, y'all can keep whatever else secrets y'all have. I don't want no nothing. I don't want to talk to nobody. I don't want to hear nothing from nobody. If she left me anything in her will, I forfeit it. Like, I'm done. I'm gone." So Byron is like, listen, I'm sick of this. Can we just listen to the rest of these tapes? Because, of course, the lawyer was like, well, this isn't how your mom wanted things to end, but do you guys want to wait and see if she'll come around, or do you want to go ahead and finish it out? And Byron was like, I want to just finish it out. Like, at this point, I'm done. I'm tired. We got one more tape to listen to, and I'm good. I'm real good. And Benny is like, no, we're not going to do that. She said, listen, that night, that Thanksgiving dinner, when I walked out of here, all I wanted was for my family to follow. I wanted somebody to follow me. I wanted somebody to come and get me and let me know that my feelings were valid and that they understood. She said, so let me try. Let me go and talk to her and let me try. So, child, we see Maggie get back to her hotel room. She done broke the mirror. She drinking straight out the bar. She is having a moment. She got a beautiful hotel room right on the water, though, girl. At first, I thought it might have been an Airbnb, but it ended up looking like it was like a hotel, just a really nice one. So Benny shows up with Caribbean food because they had bonded over the fact that they liked certain types of food or whatever. And she had told Benny that she liked breakfast for dinner, so Benny bought her Jamaican breakfast food. And of course, she was like, "Oh, okay, that's unfair manipulation. Like you trying to butter me up, girl." And so they end up talking. Benny was like, "Look, she said, look, I done already changed my flight. Like, I mean, I appreciate you coming up with the food and everything, but I'm gone." She said, "Look, let me just talk. Let's just talk for a minute." And, Benny opens up to her and talks to her about, her feelings and they sort of really bond. And she says, listen, at the very least, just finish what you started. Like, you may walk away and never want to see us again, but finish what you started. So, of course, she agrees to come back, child. Of course, she agrees to come back. And we start listening to the final tape as a family, all three of them together. And we hear Eleanor say, look, I did not voluntarily give you up for, basically the decision was taken from me. And here's the story. So that's the end of the episode. So the next episode, we're going to find out the story of what happened to the oldest daughter, right? So we have 2 more episodes. So next episode is going to finish up telling us what happened with how she ended up having the baby, losing the baby, and what happened with that. And then that final episode, the way it was written in the novel, like all of your questions were answered. So you're going to, whatever questions you still have, everything is going to be tied up. At least based in the book, everything was tied up. So yeah. So let me know what you guys think. I'll talk to y'all later. Peace.